but it always was baffling to me that somebody would go through the effort of finding you, they would go through the effort of connecting with you, and this goes to people you've been connected to for years. That's my issue. I'm so busy, and I think everybody's so busy building new relationships, connecting with as many people as they can every day. And then you look back and say, what about the 15 or 20,000 or 10,000 connections I've had for 10 years that I have never tried to nurture and find out more about? So I think that LinkedIn is rewarding us with the wrong things. We should be backwards facing of look at all these great people I've connected to for whatever reason, instead of trying to add new ones and starting from scratch.
Welcome to the Making Sales Social podcast, featuring the top voices in sales, marketing, and business. Join Bryn Tillman and me, Bob Woods, as we each bring you the best tips and strategies our guests are teaching their clients, so you can leverage them for your own virtual and social selling. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Making Sales Social. I'm Bryn Tillman, and today I'm looking forward to having Michael Kanatsky on the show. Michael is not your typical entrepreneur. He's a dynamic leader who thrives on challenging the status quo and making the seemingly impossible possible. With a career journey that spans from C-suite roles to founding his own ventures, Michael brings a wealth of experience in sales, recruiting, and business growth strategies. He's the kind of problem solver who not only sees the flaws in conventional systems, like the broken hiring ecosystem costing companies billions, but also dives headfirst into fixing them. Michael's approach is refreshingly honest, often contrarian, and deeply rooted in his passion for teaching and helping others succeed. I'm excited to dive into his unique perspective on the power of building community through the House of Bricks community. Welcome to the podcast, Michael.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you. And we're going to jump into a lot of really cool conversations around community, building communities, and what it takes. But before I do, we ask all of our guests one question, which is, what does making sales social mean to you?
That's a good question. I think to me, it's the idea that you don't have to actually sell anything. I think too many people on social networks are spending their time trying to sell. For me, it's really curiosity. It really is about building relationships and helping people to, either give them something they don't have or take away something that is annoying them. And you can't really find that out by just sending somebody an offer. You really have to take the time to get to know someone. And that means investing time and getting to know who they are as a person, getting to know some of their pain points, and really building the trust. To me, I've had this, I'd say, ethos for my entire career. I just never quite formulated into words until I started actively commenting on other people's posts and then really creating content myself. Not too long ago, consistently, probably maybe January or February, I started consistently doing it, and I really started naturally building a community, because I am somebody who doesn't go with the flow of what everyone says. I think LinkedIn has become kind of an echo chamber. People all like to agree with each other, either because that's their AI commenter doing it and it's just easier that way, or that's what they want. For me, I think it's a matter of challenging the status quo and really getting down to the bottom of how things work, why they don't work, and calling out the things that are maybe not, popular to call out, but are certainly problematic. So really, for me, it's just naturally being in a relationship scenario where you don't actually have to sell anybody anything. You're more of you're helping, you're solving, you're compelling, but I don't think selling and social really even go well together, to be honest. I think by the time you get to a point where you have a good enough relationship, you don't really have to sell anything. People kind of ask you, how can you help? And you offer them how you can help. And if you can, you can. And if you can't, you still have the relationship to fall back on. Versus if you just make an offer and they say no, you don't really have much to build on from there.
So interesting perspective. I want to dive into something that you said, or two things that you said, and share with me how you balance building relationships and being a contrarian. How do you balance the two so that you are helping and not insulting?
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of people that probably have a belief system. They'll tell you what their belief system is, why they do something. And it's very important, especially if you're coming from a place where you don't really have an agenda. And if somebody tells you something and you genuinely believe that there may be a better way, I try to approach it with offering people value, not necessarily critique, but more of what about the other way of looking at it? And for me, I try to look at it as there's a lot of people out there that probably won't offer guidance, advice, or coaching without wanting to be paid for it. So one of the
Mm.
things I do a lot, my contrarian viewpoint usually shines through in my posts and sometimes in the comment section because truth, I think, goes a lot further. But if somebody reaches out to me, which I get a lot of it, and does the traditional LinkedIn pitch slap, I don't use this as an opportunity to say no, thank you, or block them or ignore them. I actually use it as an opportunity to ask them about their approach and ask them if they think there might be a better way to do what they're doing to get the result that they likely are not getting right now. And generally, what that does is it sparks a conversation. And I don't try to sell people on trying to help them fix their problems. What I actually do is I try to get them to think about what a better way to do it is. And most people, 95% of the time, they don't say to me, "Hey, Michael, you know what? This is perfect. Thank you so much. I want to work with you." They'll say, "God, thank you for this, for that help. I'm definitely going to apply this. I really appreciate your time." And I think that being a contrarian is not a bad thing if you're actually taking the time to build a relationship of trust with someone and giving them some pointers and let them go off into the wilderness of LinkedIn to try to do it again without just saying to them, "Hey, this is broken. Let me fix it for you because what you're doing is horrible." So I kind of balance it with I'm building the relationship by offering them value that normally they would not get from someone. People will just say no or ignore them and block them. So they're not even getting feedback. So I think the contrarian approach with the value that I'm giving them back after 20 years in sales, which most people won't, that is where the balance probably comes in.
I love that. I'll just let you know, whenever I get that connect and pitch, my response email, I just brought it up, was, as a LinkedIn trainer, I'm curious if the connect and pitch is working for you. If you're open, I'd love to share some free resources that can help you start more sales conversations by adding value. Let me know, I'll send a link. And so then it becomes permission based. So I just wanted to
I
share
love it.
that.
I love it.
'Cause I love that you're doing this. And one of the areas that I have found to not become insulting is to ask them how it's working. Some people will come back and say it's working swimmingly. I'm like, that's not true. It's not. I know it's not, right? And
Yeah.
typically when I get a response like that, it's from the company they hired to actually spam people. So they don't ever even see that message. So
Yeah.
that's typically when I get a response that it's doing well, but it doesn't do well. And you're right, value-centric relationships, when you are coming in to help them do better, always wins the day. I do come from a permission-based approach. So I don't typically send the advice, I offer it. And if they want it, and we actually A/B test it, and we get significantly more people that want it and click through when you ask them permission. So that was just my little add
Absolutely.
value.
I love that. I think that there's not a right way to do it. There's a lot of
That
wrong ways, right? We know there's a lot of wrong ways. There's no one right way. I mean, that's just, it's the thing about it, and most people don't do this, and why I've had the most success with anyone, probably including even the conversation you and I started. I always tell people, I'm here for the relationships. It's genuine, it's true. I don't have an agenda. And a lot of people aren't used to somebody saying, I don't have any agendas. I'm just looking to meet great people because they think that one, everyone must have an agenda. Two, well, I need to have a purpose for the phone call rather than just meeting someone new, which again is so rare. But it always was baffling to me that somebody would go through the effort of finding you, they would go through the effort of connecting with you, and this goes to people you've been connected to for years. That's my issue. I'm so busy, and I think everybody's so busy building new relationships, connecting with as many people as they can every day. And then you look back and say, what about the 15 or 20,000 or 10,000 connections I've had for 10 years that I have never tried to nurture and find out more about? So I think that LinkedIn is rewarding us with the wrong things. We should be backwards facing of look at all these great people I've connected to for whatever reason, instead of trying to add new ones and starting from scratch.
So I love it. We call it taking inventory. Who have you been ignoring? So
Everybody.
this is so fun. So I'm sure you know this, but I'm just sharing. You can export all your connections into an Excel spreadsheet. And we actually typically will tell our clients to categorize them, and we call it CPR. We're breathing life back into our network, but it's client, prospect, or referral partner. And so we're going to engage each of them slightly differently, right? So you can also search your first degree connections, but we always say start. If you've been collecting connections like business cards and sticking rubber bands around them, metaphorically, it's time to
Yep.
take business cards out and to take inventory. So
Yeah, I
I
agree.
love how aligned we are. We've never even talked about this, so it's really
Like,
awesome.
but that's the thing. I think there's probably, and I don't want to say the older LinkedIn generations, I'm going to say older. I'm going to say more of like the old guard that actually remembers a LinkedIn where it was, hey, I need a job. It's a resume. You used it as, and I remember talking to people like even 5 years ago, and I'd say, well, how come you only have 50 connections? They say, because I know 50 people. And I'd say, well, God, then go meet 100 people, go meet 1,000. And those same people that said, why would I connect with someone I don't know? You'd look at their link, Facebook, and they'd have 1,000 friends, and you say, how many do you know? Like, I don't know, 50. Like, exactly. So it's a lot of people didn't want to even venture out to meet new people, but then it went the other way, which is I'm gonna fill my network up with all these amazing connections. Why though? And
Right.
so I think that this is where people don't have system strategies and tools to actually take the inventory like you're talking about, do the CPR method. And even if you don't have a CPR method, like I don't care if they're a prospect, how about no agenda? Just, a lot of people follow Justin Welch. This is always a funny example for me. Everybody's all about Justin Welch. And about 5 months ago, I was going through my first connections and I realized that Justin and I have been connected since 2012
Wow.
when Justin actually worked at ZocDoc, and I had just interviewed there briefly at a time for 2011, and we connected probably in 2012, whatever it was. And I was remember thinking, we don't even realize the gold that we have in our network because all we're busy is trying to conquer new territories, but we already have so much that we can go back to. So it's just, I think that we all need to slow down and we need to kind of, like you said, take inventory, figure out who are all these amazing people I chose to, or they chose to, or we chose to.
We
At
chose,
one
right? We
point, we
chose.
chose, right? Like you have an option that says, do you want to accept? And yet, a lot of these people, and I've done this at the beginning of this year. I set out that, and it was never going to happen in a year. It was not going to happen in 5, but I was like, I'm going to just send messages to all of my first connections. And I just systemically started doing it and just saying, we've been connected, but we've never connected. We don't know
Mhm.
each other. So why have we been connected for 5 years? Do you want to have a chat and figure out who we are, who you are, who I am, and how we can potentially do something benefiting each other? Or do you just rather disconnect? And to my surprise, I got neutral answers that were like, okay, no thanks, the typical buttons. Some were, yeah, we can disconnect. And, quite a few also said, oh my God, you're right. Let's connect for a chat. But it wasn't universally just, oh my God, we connected. Of course, why don't we get to know each other? Which really struck me that people are connecting to collect connections. That's it. And that's what's been happening. And that's why people are so, immersed in follower counts and connection counts to the point where they put it in their headlines, 25K followers, 25K connections. It's like, who cares? How many of them do you have in your phone book when you call them on a Friday night when you need to be bailed out of prison? And the answer
Yeah.
probably is like 0. So let's value the connections instead of the quantity, the quality. And that's probably where my contrarian side comes into a lot of what's happening in LinkedIn these days.
Yeah, so I love this. So just looking at our history, we connected September 6th, 2018. You reached out in 2022 to just say, how are you? I'm making it my goal to, connect with my first degree connections. We had a very nice response back and forth. But then at one point, I said, I mentioned a fun way to reengage our network is to do a poll and ask them to vote. And you're like, that was a great idea. So we've had all this back and forth. And now the time was right to invite you on as a podcast guest. And, and it just came, whatever comes from this, maybe I'll refer you business now that I know you better. All of these things came out of it. But there was no, like you said, major agenda. You didn't connect with me in 2018 to be a podcast guest 6 years later.
No,
right?
no,
But it comes out
no.
of that because I see your content, I see what you're doing. You've brought real value. We had a real conversation about what it takes to re-engage connections, and we're here today. So I just wanted to say you practice what you teach. And that's exactly how we ended up here today. And maybe some people in my network will follow you and refer you or leverage your expertise. But now your network is now expanded into mine. And when you share this, my network is expanded into yours. So it's a win-win for everyone. So I love that that's your perspective. And I love that's exactly how we ended up here today. So
Look, I think that what I've learned, and this goes from 20 years of, again, I call it old school selling, but I've had a sales career that, and again, my contrarian point of view comes on and comes out on LinkedIn, where I see people that graduated 2 to 3 years ago, and they have things in their profile that say LinkedIn expert, lead gen expert. I'll show you how to 5x your revenue. You don't know what my revenue is. I'll show you how to 10x your leads. You have no idea how many leads I have.
$1.
That's my point. And I see these headlines that they're not screaming build a relationship with me, they're screaming transact with me. And so these are the profiles that I want to reach out to these people and say, look, you're not doing anything of value. And everyone out there is saying this. So there's nothing about you that's special. So if I say, why is there no agenda conversations better? Well, if I said to you, hey, Bryn, I want to talk to you about how I could sell you blah, 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 you may agree. Let's say you do agree, hypothetically. Say, all right, fine, I'll hear you out. I'm a salesperson. I'll hear you out. Here's what's going to happen on the call. I'm going to say the focus of the, like the SDR thing. The reason for the call today is because of blah, blah, blah. And you say like this, okay, Michael, go for it. Because I'm blocking you, jab, left hook. I got my shoulder out because I don't want you to sell me. So now all I'm trying to do is get you to open something up and you're trying to just block me. If I just say to you, I don't have an agenda and I just start, hey, talk to me, oh, look, I noticed you have a white brick in the background. That's a great design. I love that. And we start talking, I have a house, we're the House of Bricks community. You have white bricks. That's really cool. If we just go on a tangent, before you know it, you let your guard down anyway, because you trust the fact that I'm just here to build a relationship. And you may say something that I say, Bryn, you know what? I was thinking about what you said. Here's how I could help you, or you should do it, even if I don't help you. And then you go, Michael, you know what? That's a great idea. Maybe you can help me. And you just naturally flow into what may turn out to be a relationship. This works on, imagine, first dates. Hey, the reason I'm here today is because I'm looking for a potential wife and I need 2 kids. So I just wanted to make sure that you're okay with 2 kids and getting married. And you'd be like, what are you talking about? I don't even know you. But sales is treated like this every day on LinkedIn because they think I could pitch
even on the phone. It's not even just LinkedIn. It's
everywhere.
Culture of let me throw as much on the wall and hope that something sticks versus let me bring as much value to my network and I'll attract the right people.
But nobody wants to invest the time because time, it's hard to invest the time. So nobody wants to do it. It's much easier to say, well, I have 1 million prospects. Let me send out 1 million emails. I mean, people try to sell me, every week I get an email saying I can send out 10,000 emails a week for you. I'm like, why would I need 10,000 emails a week? Why don't I just reach out to 100 people and probably 40 will speak to me anyway. And maybe 5 of them will say, Michael, you could help me. But why just have 15 ghost emails or mirror domains just so you can send as many emails while everyone else is doing that? Well, everyone is doing this. Go to the side of relationship building. I mean, if you look at the big creators, and I mean the real big creators, I don't mean the creators that are probably, using pods and pretending to be the big one. I mean the real ones, the genuine ones. They're in it not to sell anything. They're in it to add value consistently. And people probably reach out and ask them for their help because they end up trusting them after a certain period of time. So trust equity, the relationship, Adam always says relationship capital. What are we doing? We're building relationship capital, one to many. Meet one person, just one person will open up 100 doors. Or you can just knock down 100 doors and hope one opens.
Yeah. So let's dive into this a little bit. I could talk to you literally all day. I love this conversation. But you're the
Likewise.
head of growth at House of Bricks, which really is a community of founders. And, from talking with you, it really revolves around, hey, it's lonely at the top. And, I'm really looking for a community to help me scale my business and talk about challenges and dreams and future plans with other folks. Talk to me about how important an advisory community is for founders, and a little bit about whether it's House of Bricks or another community. I'll use your
Sure.
conversation. Why would a founder want to be part of a community like this?
So depending on, I think when we talk about founders, there's nomenclature that generally, let's say people outside of entrepreneurial world that are working for a company, and they hear founders, and I think the immediate thing in their mind is Facebook, Uber, Airbnb. They think about like the tech founders who are like gonna, go to an accelerator, go to Series A, B, C, D, exit their company for $1 billion, and that's in their mind a founder. But really, one of the things that we embrace in the House of Bricks, and why Adam even, did this himself, because he's exited 5 companies. He's not a tech founder. He's done a multitude of things. He's exited a company that went public. But again, we're looking at what if you want to scale your ice cream shop that you've founded, you started, you have a passion for it, you opened up a shop, and now you want to add another 100, $1,000 in revenue. Well, you're a founder. You don't have to be a traditional founder. So really, it opens up the gates for everyone. And one of the things about founders generally, especially early on, first-time founders, they try to go at everything alone. And it's not because they want to, it's because they don't think they have a choice. They don't have the community. They don't know where to turn. And they believe that by being the only way you can actually get help is by paying a lot of money for it or getting people to invest in your business, which is why when I talk to founders and when we have this in the community, it's almost like a joke. Every time we talk to founders of any kind, they say 2 things. I need to raise money and I need sales. But that's really not what founders need. What founders need, and this is where the simple framework comes in, SIMPLE, the first one, everyone wants the E, execute. They all want execution, right? Everyone needs the I, innovation. Everyone needs the right M, mindset. But the number one thing that no one usually has because they're too busy rushing through the process to get to a revenue point, to an MVP, an MVC, whatever it might be, is they skip the strategy. There's no strategy to do it. So we're trying to slow people down and show them that this community is not where we, myself and Adam, are just sitting there talking at you and everybody's in an arena listening and looking up. It's every person in the community has value and has something they bring to the table. So it's not a top down, it's a bottom up. Everyone is involved. Where there's no, Adam loves to say, there's no title envy in the House of Bricks. It's just a bunch of people that have all life experiences that they can bring to the table. And we give everyone a podium to do that. So whether or not somebody needs an advisory, whether or not they want to learn how to do boot camp and do the sales aspect of it, whether they just literally want to be a part of something so they're not lonely anymore. Because, building in solitude is okay. A lot of people build in solitude, but it's the loneliness of it that affects your mindset and how you feel emotionally. And that's why being a founder is depressing and people go through these waves of loneliness and depression because it never stops. So the community was built first and foremost to bring people together and give them a place where they can exchange ideas. And then, of course, from there, they may need something else. And with Adam and Bill, myself, you add up all of our experiences and what we've done, you're talking about probably 80 years just between the 3 of us. And that's not including the community and all of the amazing talent that we have. So once you open that up, one becomes many, and the things you start, and again, we're incentivizing them to collaborate, transact if they need to, right? Everyone in the House of Bricks can do whatever they want. We're not limiting it to what we do. We're just trying to bring great people together, so it's the idea behind it is really about, first and foremost, making sure people are not lonely and have relationships, great friendships, and then you start adding the value into it. But bringing them together, that's the part that really meant something to Adam, because he's been a founder for 27 years, since he was 19. And he's basically built this based on all the failures that he's had so he can help others avoid the same ones.
I love that. And for our listeners, it's Adam House Sr., who is the founder. So if you were looking for him on LinkedIn, that's where House of Bricks comes from. So I just wanted to, because I know
Everything's a pun.
Our listeners are on LinkedIn all the time going, look him up, look him up, look him up.
Yeah.
So that's so this has been absolutely outstanding. I'm going to have you back because there's so many more questions and really fabulous. The second to last question I'm going to ask you, is there any question I haven't asked you that I should have?
Well, I mean, I'd say that probably one of the questions that people generally ask me is, what is a change provocateur? Because I have that in my, in my headline in parentheses. That's usually the primary question people ask me when they reach out to me is they go, I love that, but why? Why do you have that? And so I believe that everything requires change, right? People are reluctant to change. And I think change is something that requires friction. And for a time, as a matter of fact, it might still be there, I would call myself the frictional consultant. And people thought I made a mistake. They thought it was supposed to be fractional, and I just misspelled it. And I said, no, it's a frictional consultant, because whenever I work with a client, the first thing I tell them is, this is not going to be pleasant, because if you're asking me to help you, there's probably something wrong. And the only way to address that there's a problem is you have to be uncomfortable and address the fact that something has to change. And nothing changes comfortably. Change happens when there's friction, when something's not working, whether it's friction in your business, friction in your family, friction with your process, friction because there's a lack of revenue, whatever it might be, you need to do that. And then I started thinking about it. Well, I want to provoke change, because everybody says, wow, thank you, Michael. That's so thought. For years, I would say things and I would have common people tell me, commonly tell me, people commonly tell me both say, that's really thought provoking. And I started thinking, I think people have a lot of thought provocation, but not a lot of change provocation. Right? You say, man, I want to think about that. Yeah, that's something to think about. And I always tell people, how about something to think about and do? How about change provocation? So I started saying it. And after a while, I said, you know what? I'm going to be a change provocateur, because that's all I care about, is people to do the things they say they should change, not talk about the things they should change. And so that's where the change provocateur came from, and the friction that requires a change. Even in our boot camp inside the House of Bricks, which is designed to be an entire program from personal branding creation through your sales approach. And again, I may take it from a very different perspective, because I actually come from 20 years of sales experience first. I didn't just pop on LinkedIn 3 years ago and said, I'm an expert in the algorithm, which, by the way, if you don't work for a LinkedIn, you're not an expert in the algorithm. So you should remove that from your profile, because even
you're Richard Onderblum. There is one expert that
There's one expert, right? I mean, he might write the algorithm, right?
Well, he studies it like no other. So
look, there's people that know
the
algorithm.
He shares his report with everyone. So
and that's the thing. If you notice, everybody talks about the algorithm all the time. So I always tell people, like, look, it doesn't matter about the algorithm. So even in the boot camp, I call it a boot camp, because in order to have success on LinkedIn, you cannot cheat your way through. You need to put in the work. You need to care about your community. Well, you got to build it. You need to care about them. You got to show up every day. You got to engage with them. You got to do that for them and expect nothing. And many people give up on LinkedIn because they show up, they do it, they comment, they engage, and they go, oh, nothing. Why am I not getting any likes and comments? Well, because it's like going to the gym. You don't have results the first week. You don't lose 20 pounds your first week. You don't lose any weight the first week. You may gain weight the first week, maybe. It doesn't matter. Show up every day. And after 6 months, I mean, it took me months to get to a point where, first of all, I don't really care much about engagement. I care about the relationships that comes from it. So whether it's 10 likes or 1,000, most people on LinkedIn,
10 of the right likes than 1,000 of the not right.
That's likes. Exactly right. And most people, they get those likes, or even the fake ones, based on pods and AI pods, all that stuff. So now that you have 1,000 likes, what do you do with it?
Right.
It's useless, and people don't value that. So That's probably, to me, if somebody was going to ask me a question, that's the most common question I get is
I love
why
that.
change provocateur?
I love that. So the last question is, if people are looking to have a conversation with or without an agenda, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I make it so easy to get in touch with me, which is actually surprising to me that more people just don't take advantage. I mean, there's literally a booking link right in my profile that says build a bridge, and I say it is build a bridge is it's all we're doing is building a relationship, right? We don't know what the bridge is going to cross over, but it's going to connect two worlds. My mobile number is in my bio. It's also anybody that's connected to me, my mobile number and my email is right in my contact section. So I really make it easy for people to connect with me for any reason whatsoever, if they so want. Just this weekend, somebody connected with me on Saturday at 9:30 and decided they were going to text me trying to pitch me. You know?
Well, yeah, they should have
I mean,
they should have read
it's
your LinkedIn profile first. They would have found a better way.
they might
So,
have,
and
but
you also
at
you
least
have
they
your
did it.
yeah, you have your Calendly link in your profile. So do I, and I am shocked now at how few people do that. So I'm going to share a little before we wrap this up. A little, an interesting. I'm going to carefully say this, and I'm going to hope no one abuses this. But you can search your first degree connections and the keyword calendly.com. And you can find all of your first degree connections.
If you have Sales Navigator, especially, right?
You could do it in the free.
Oh no, I mean, I know you can
Oh,
do it in the thing, but I always tell people, look, if you really want to be able to be more deliberate about the things you're doing. And let's be honest, a lot of people are on LinkedIn, one way or
mhm,
another, they're looking for some kind of relationship that may lead to sales. A lot, this is, people aren't here to boast about their vacations. So I always tell people Sales Navigator and some efficiency tools that
mhm.
allow you to save time with your hands, not your personality. You don't want to ever outsource your personality to any kind of tools on this platform, but
Agreed.
time is valuable. And yeah, you could search anything you want. You could search Calendly, you can search Call Me, you could search, you know, put a
Right.
phone number. I mean, there's so much you could do. And I think that's where it comes down to. Many people are on LinkedIn trying to chase these top creators that they have no idea how they got there, but they look at them and go, well, whatever they're doing, I need to do. When in fact, all they need to do is just learn the basics and learn everything you can do with it. And at your fingertips, you have a Rolodex. If you really know what you're doing, you have a Rolodex of potentially 1 billion people. What are you
Yeah.
going to do with that power? And you don't want to just pitch slap everyone. You want to get to know people because you may get to know someone like you, like me, and say, I'm looking for XYZ, and I probably know 50 people for every letter of the alphabet service. Why? Because I've been building relationships and building a network for 17 years on here. So you don't want to, I'm not the relationship you want to try to pitch slap because that relationship goes away if that's all you can offer and it's not something I want. And generally, the ironic part about it is, for some reason, for me, people try to pitch slap me LinkedIn training for sales, which is the worst thing you could try to sell me because I've been in sales for 20 years. So
Yeah.
I find that to be funny. Uh,
Well, I get all the time. I took a look at your profile and I think you could improve it. I'm like, I teach people to do this. Even if you have improvements, then ask permission, say, hey, I looked at your profile and I have some ideas for you. Are you open? And of course I'd be open to ideas, but don't start by insulting me. So
Well,
anyway,
do you see
again,
theirs though? Yeah, I always look at
I know they're
theirs
always
immediate,
terrible.
right? And I look at theirs always and go, if this is what you do, if I could look at yours in 5 seconds and see that you are missing massive things, then how can you even offer me this,
So
right?
I had one, and he had the gray head, and I know that it was because he had his settings that only first degree connections could see his photo. And I replied, I said, if you have a photo, no one can see it. Here's a link to get to open this up. He
Right.
goes, thanks so much. I said, you can't claim to be an expert if you don't even know that. Like you can it's crazy to me. Anyway, again, we could
Yeah.
talk all day, and we're about double the time of a normal podcast, which was huge value, and I'm thrilled. And I thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
I know we're going to keep talking because we're talking the same language, and I'm loving it. And to all of our listeners, make sure you go connect with Michael, learn about House of Bricks and the value that community is bringing. If you're a founder, an entrepreneur, and you're looking for something where you can bring value and get value and build a community, definitely check out House of Bricks. And when you're out and about, thank you. Oh, I'm excited. And to our listeners, when you're out and about, don't forget to make your sales social.
Don't miss an episode. Visit socialsaleslink.com/podcast. Leave a review down below. Tell us what you think, what you learned, and what you want to hear from us next. Register for free resources at linkedinlibrary.com. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play. Visit our website, socialsaleslink.com, for more information.